Okay, our recording is on. We can start. Zot the Heilige Gemara. We're starting from a brand new Mishnah on Pei Amud Aleph, custom designed for Daf Yomi. We have a Mishnah right at the top of the page. Zot the Heilige Gemara. Halakeach Peiros Shoivach Mechaverei. So someone buys the peiros of a shoivach, meaning the birds inside this bird coop. So the halach is mafriach breicha rishayim. The person selling the peiros shoivach doesn't want to completely destroy his bird producing business, so he wants to keep something for himself. So the understanding is that the first breicha that's born, he gets to keep. There's a big machlokes, the Rashbam and Tosfos, how this works. But let's start with the Rashbam. Halakeach peiros shoivach kigayin she'amar loy b'Nisan. In Nisan, someone goes over to a person who has a shoivach, and he tells him, "Mecharli peiros shanazu mashayeldu b'cholchai." Whatever your birds give birth this year, every month, I want those children. I'm not interested in the mothers, in the older female birds that are giving birth. I don't want them. I just want their parents. But derech hayonim, now the Rashbam is telling us how birds create children. But derech hayonim lasos. So we're going to literally learn today about the birds and the bees. So we're starting with the birds, and right after this, we're going to get to the bees. So now we already have a title for today's shir, the birds and the bees. So v'derech hayonim lasos shnei v'lados b'chol chodesh. They're very organized. They have what we call family planning. Every month, they have. I'm not sure if you're trying to say something, but you're on mute. So I see your lips moving, but I don't hear anything. So you don't have to unmute, but if you want,
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. I don't want to wake up anybody up in their houses when they hear someone talking about the birds and the bees in the middle of the Gemara, but that's what their mission is telling us. I'm not making this up. So the litter is every month there's a zachar and a keva produced. On Purim, the birds go on vacation. She'ein yolden, that's why they don't give birth. I actually read up a little bit on it. It's at the end of the winter, at the beginning of the spring, is when the birds don't give birth. They're sort of running out of energy. So a couple of months things slow down until the summer starts again. The hainu v'lados gam heim l'soif beis chadoshim oisim v'lados. So how long does it take for a bird to reach puberty? 2 months, and then they're ready to reproduce again. Again, b'chol chodesh. So these birds are busy birds. Every pair of birds born, zachar and nekeva, is called a brecha. So now at least we know what it means. The brecha rishona, the first 2 birds that are born, the first set, the first couple, you're mafriach them. What does it mean, mafriach? Mafriach halikeach brecha rishona, mayniach lefroyach im ha'im. They say birds of a feather flock together. In this case, it's birds of a feather fly together. So you leave the first offspring of the mothers to remain with the mothers. That the seller did not, even though he's selling all the pairs, he doesn't mean the first set of offspring born to the bird. Why do they keep the first set of children? If all the children of this mother flies away, the mother's going to fly away as well, and now he'll have nothing left. So in order for the person selling the pairs of a shoivach to at least retain the mother birds, he has to also retain their offspring, because otherwise they're not going to stay. This is similar to why everybody moves to Lakewood nowadays. He didn't want to sell his shoivach completely. He wanted to continue his business, but he's selling. So what he's selling is only the offspring born after the first set of offspring remains there, so that the mother should stay.
Well, what business is that exactly? What are these birds producing?
Other birds.
Yeah, so but they're not in the control of the owner. They fly off all over the place.
So it seems like the mothers stay there. I guess they that became their place. They settle down.
And
I
he,
guess
how does he
even
keep
birds settle
track
down
of?
after a while.
How do you keep track? They all look alike.
Uh,
Which mother gave birth already, which didn't? Uh, how do you even know the difference between a male and a female? I don't think you can tell.
I'm not sure, but well, it's interesting here because it's only talking about the moys over here. It's not talking about the fathers. I know a lot of mothers like moving to Lakewood, but the fathers would rather stay here. But I'm not sure how they could tell. But could be. I think we once learned cases where there's actually in the shayvich itself there were cubicles, and could be different mothers set up shop in different cubicles
And I don't understand. How do you make money out of this exactly?
because
I
he's selling
understood it
birds.
was for the fertilizer that
No, he's
it
selling birds.
produced.
He's just
Huh?
selling. He's selling birds.
For the fertilizer or
No,
for
the
the
birds
to eat
for dinner.
to consume the birds to
Yeah,
eat them?
so I'm selling my birds to somebody else. That person, he could either shech those birds or he could use them to reproduce.
And keeping track of them. I don't know how that's even
I have
possible.
no idea how he kept track of the first litter of each mother. How do they know? That I have no idea. I have no idea. I guess the could be when a mother bird hatches her babies, she stays connected to them, so you can see who's connected to who.
Yeah, how do you know if it's the first litter or not the first litter?
That because it says it's once a month, so you could tell right away once the bird's 2 weeks old, it's reproducing on its own. So anything that comes after that, you would know would be considered the second litter. I'm not. I don't know how. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not in the bird business. I'm not sure how it works. But it seems like the children will stay with the mother, and after 2 months, the children are already full adults. So we want to keep them together.
And they get their own nest in the same shayvach?
Well, it depends if they can afford to get their own place. They probably move out and get their own place. Nowadays, they would just be in the basement playing video games. And then the mother says, "Bird brain, get out and get your own house." And then they become angry birds.
Oh.
Hilchach, Terever, Mistama, Gam Breich Rishona, Shel Shana Zu, Ikev Ima Shoivech, the Zu Ikima Shoivech. So that's what, even though the owner of the Shoivech is selling all the pairs of the Shoivech, he means besides the first set of birds that are born, because that will keep the whole Shoivech together. Because if these kids move to Lakewood, their mothers are going to move with them, and it's going to destroy his whole Shoivech. If the Gemara Mefarish that it goes a step further, because if he's holding on to the first set of children born, and then 2 weeks later or 2 months later, they're going to give birth, and their children are going to go away, so then they're going to leave. And when they leave, then the grandparents are going to leave. So it's all going to come tumbling down. So therefore, the Gemara Mefarish, the Gam Perish Harishonim, Tahibrech Rishona, Shire Hamoicher. Even the Einiklach of this first set of children born also remain with the Moicher. Because if the grandchildren don't stay, then the children won't stay. And if the children won't stay, then the mothers won't stay. So you're going to ask me, well, that ain't oversized. What about the great grandchildren? So that's where there's a machloikis between the Rashbam and Tosfos. In fact, Tosfos hold that this line of children forever and ever stay with the owner. Only the next set of children can go away. But the Rashbam learns that after you have a mother and a grandmother, that's good enough. You don't need children; you'll still stay.
Right. There's a.
Every month there's more children born.
Right, only one other set. Once they're adults.
No, the mother gives birth to one. one gives birth to A, but the mother also gives birth to two.
Right.
Two is sold.
Right.
Yeah, but even if they're mature, they still stick around by the mother. So that keeps the family together.
When Avimelech made the deal with Avram, when they had this bris, said Lunini Vilinechti, and Rashi comments that they don't care about the fourth generation, they don't care so much about.
Remember, the problem is the third generation does care about the fourth generation. That's the problem.
Yeah, I understand.
So for that, so that the Torah says it goes on forever and ever. And the Rishbam says that once you have your mother and your grandmother, you'll stay. That's how I understand. So again, the purchaser assumes that the first set of children born remain with the owner and their children as well. Our mission doesn't say that, but the Bryce is going to say that. Paris Kaveris. What about you sell the bees? So that's why we're learning about the birds and the bees today. What if you sell the pairs of your beehive? Zokt Rishbam. Shoshana Achas means Devorim Hanoildim in the Kaveris, all the bees that are born from this beehive. Noitel Gimel Nechilim. You take the first 3 litters, Umisaris. There's different pshat and Umisaris, but the pshat is at that point the owner could stop the bees from producing more bees. Let's have a look at the Rashbam how this works. Noidel Gimel Nechilim. Zok the Rashbam, teaching us literally about how the bees reproduce. It's literally the birds and the bees. Gimel Chaburis Hanoildois Rishayna, the Gimel Zmanim. The first 3 groups of bees that are born in 3 different periods. Mites Yomim Ayud Yomim Zacharze. So bees seem to reproduce much faster. Every 9 or 10 days, they put out a litter. Shechein derech hakevaris. V'tchilas yimois hakei. To the beginning of the summer, yoitzim in the kaveris nechil shal devorim iladis. A swarm of young bees. Sheyeldu ha'imois. That the mothers give birth to them. V'yoishim al anaf ilam. These bees aren't like our generation where everyone lives in their parents' basement forever. Rather, the moment they're born, they go out and open up their own branch, and they're out of the house the moment they're born, and they go sit on a branch. And now the owner of the hive is got to come up with another house to house all these new birds. Umevi kaveris chadosh umachnisin l'soichad. So every 10 days, a swarm of bees, baby bees, leaves the hive. The owner realizes, we need to build another house. He builds another beehive, and then they join him. Then they come there. The test. You know what happens is these bees are homeless. They're on a tree branch, and the balabas makes a new kaveris for them, and then they go house hunting. And it's easy for them to pick a house because there's only one house to choose from, right? And they move into the new house. The test. A yud yomim, another yotzei lichos acher, and maybe kaveris achas reikonis umachlisin l'soich. The chein hashlishi, the kohen letirtzel. The third group of bees are called the tirtzel. In Greece, the bees used to be much more reproductive, and they would produce 7 or 8 litters. But in this neighborhood, the Rashbam is saying, Ruban oisim gimel pomim. They just make 3 litters. Vashlishi garu makulam. The third group of bees born are the weakest of them. The achroin achen garua, because as the strength of the bees start to get depleted, the children that come out of them get weaker and weaker. That's why when I'm buying the pairs of a kaveris, I really only mean the first 3, because after that, there's shvachamaises anyway. And then umasaris. Klever mikan velech yigroim lahema moicher sheyistar sumayeleim. The moicher can cause that the bee should stop reproducing. Why? Let's not forget, the purpose of these bees is because the owner wants them to produce honey. So enough of your reproductive fun. Now, so basically, it's the balabas tells them, no honey, no money. Because I need my honey, right? If there's honey, there's no money. So therefore, we gotta make more honey. But I'm having sensory overload. The advash shel moicheru. The dvash, of course, belongs to the owner. Once they reproduce, then they get down to business. Then ois dvash. The yesha harganoison. There are those who killed bees after the honey is produced. But like an advash, and they take the dvash. The yesha marikanoison the kaveris rekonis, and there are those who just take the honey out and let the bees remain. So I actually read up a little bit how bees work. Bees live off in the winter, in the cold months, they live off the honey in the hive. But towards the end of the winter, their honey starts to get depleted and they don't have any more koyach until the new blossoms come out, and that's when they get the nectar, and that's how they get the honey. So bee lives, I'm going to get in a second, I'm not sure, but probably about a year. At the beginning of the summer is when they start reproducing, because that's when they re-energize, because they have new nectar from the growing flowers and blossoms. Now, what I read up about bees is they sort of hunker down in the winter, and of course, depending on how long the winters are, that actually has a very big impact on when their mating season starts. But if there's a cold winter, usually at the beginning of the summer is when the action starts. And there's three categories of bees. There's the queen bee, who lays all the eggs, surrounded by the worker bees. The worker bees are female bees that are not mature yet.
That live the year, all the bees that live the year.
No, let me get to how it works. The drones are the ones who go get the nectar. They're the males. And what happens is, as the nectar resources start to deplete towards the end of the winter, there's not enough food to go around. So all the worker bees, the female bees, kill all the drones and they throw them out. They kill them and throw them out of the hive, let them figure it out on their own. And then I guess they keep one male just in case they need to produce more bees. And the whole cycle starts again in the spring.
The other worker bees don't produce?
No, only the queen bee produces. So Zok to Gemara, Paris Kaveris, Noitel Gimel Nechilim Masaris. What about Chalois Tavash? What if you're selling just the honey? Now, the honey is usually like a grid, a honeycomb. So he would sell honeycombs. So the loch is a niach beis chalois. You always keep 2 chalois. Even though I'm selling you all of the honey in my hive, I'm retaining 2 chalois because those 2 honeycombs will sustain my bees through the winter. Chalois Tavash up Rishbam, Hakeveris, La'achash, Asa Peris, the Yotzo Nechilim, Loichanes Advas. Then the owners take the honey. It's usually in honeycombs. The yesh boy yud chalois or esrim zebet hazeh mishayvu dvash mur biyachad. You'd have a whole series of honeycombs, and the honeycombs would have honey and mixed in with beeswax. Someone who sells them, but didn't sell the whole beehive, meaning he wants to continue his beehive. He wants to put it in for storage so that next year it will produce more pears. How are the bees in this hive going to be sustained through the winter if he doesn't keep any honey for himself? Okay, and now we have the last case is Zaysim Lokuts. I'm selling you the right to cut down all of the olives from an olive tree. You have to leave 2 branches of olive on the tree, as the Rishbam says, and this will allow the tree to continue growing and surviving to produce pears for another season. Our Mishnah says mafriach brecha rishona, which in its simplest understanding means the mother bird that gives birth to 2 birds, it's just those 2 birds that remain with the mother. But the Brisa says brecha rishona ushnia. It's the first and the second. So it seems to be a contradiction between the Mishnah and the Brisa. Rav Kana loy kasha Hala ima. The second generation, the shnia, is required so that the first generation should stay. The first generation stays is leima, is that the mother should stay. And break the Gemara, oy bazoi, maishna ima, the mitztafta abarta vazuga. The mother is happy with her zug, with her husband, and with her daughter. Notice no one cares about the husband that comes along for the ride. And that's why we leave the first set of offspring to remain with the mother. Why is it that the mother is happy with the daughter's company, and that'll keep the mother there, but the daughter is not happy with the mother's company, and you're claiming that the daughter needs to have her first set of children as well, otherwise she's going to run away. A mother is very happy with the company of her daughter, and that will be enough to keep her content. But Barta Ima a girl wouldn't be happy only with the company of her mother. She wants to have her children as well. And the Rashbam speaks out. But when it comes to the grandchild who's staying as well, why don't they need their children? So the Rashbam fears us over here. Rashbam fears us over here. Mitztavsa, and the third generation is happy. Ima ve'aim ima. The havalu chaburas tuva. Just the mother is not enough. But if she has her mother there and her grandmother, then this bird will stay, and we don't need future generations. That's right. So that is how the Rashbam learns. So the Rashbam learns, it seems, like the first set of birds born to one mother remains. Tosfos learns that the first set of birds born to every mother remains, and not only that, the next generation and the next generation and the next generation always remain. So he doesn't hold that the Einikel will be happy with the mother and the grandfather. He holds it goes on and on forever. And if you look at the last three lines of the first Tosfos, Vuadin Shnia Ushlishis Revius. So how come it doesn't say that? The town is not going to list off forever and ever. It just lists off three generations, and you get the message that it's all the generations. I guess so. Well, based on what the Rashbam told us, a bird gives birth every month too, and the birds that they produce in 2 months could start producing their own birds. So never mind. It's very similar to how when Maytag wants to see how their washers would fare under 100 years of use, they put it into the Jewish family for a week. Because we do so much laundry, we simulate a much longer use. So a bird simulate, like 100 years of a human life, because they get down to business and start reproducing quickly. Okay. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Peres keveres notel gimel nechilim u'mesaris. Now this will bring us back to one of the most difficult sugyas that we had this year. If you remember, we were talking about what you're allowed to have along your border, and one guy had mustard and one guy had bees. And there was a question, does the mustard mess up the bees or the bees mess up the mustard? We had such a machlokes. It was a very complicated sugya, a very, very complicated sugya. We're not going to get into the complication of the sugya, but we're now discussing bees and mustard. But Memisarshan, how do you stop the bees from reproducing? It's simple, you feed them mustard. It's not like chemically the chaydel makes them stop giving birth. Rather, when they eat chaydel, their mouth is burning because chaydel is sharp. They go back and eat their honey. So how does that stop them from reproducing? Zog the Rashbam. They go feast on honey, and now they're bloated and tired, like after a big cholent. So because of that, they cannot engage in perivirevia, and what they do is, but that's not how the Tziyonim learn. The Tziyonim learn is umizdavgois. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's later on. It seems like they go to eat more, and then they're mizapim. But whatever the case is, that stops them from reproducing. The ikala meimar the lashon haba yuldu oisen dvarim. The next year, these same bees are going to reproduce, but then the yushal moicher, those would not have been included in the sale. So zok to Gemara. So that is the first drop. Sirus prevents these bees from reproducing. Gewaltig. However, Rabbi Yochanan, that's not what it means. Mesiris means noitel shloishin nechilim besiris. You don't get the first three. You get the first, the owner gets the second. You get the third, the owner gets the fourth. You get the fifth, and the owner gets the sixth. That's what it means, besiris. This way, the owner will also get half decent bees as well, but you get first pick on each round. However, a little bit differently, noitel gimel nechilim bezerchazeh. The first three litters, for sure, the lakech gets. Any bees produced afterwards, the moicher gets every second one, and lakech gets every second one. So Sears doesn't mean stop them from the earth. Sears means you're starting to go back and forth.
And the first three is the Lakayah?
The first three is the lakech, according to the Masnisa Tam. And the Rishbam says that's what we're going to pass like, because that's more much in the Mishnah, that the first three are completely for the lakeh. So chalish tabash. What about if I'm selling honeycombs? Maniach shtei chalish, you leave 2 chalish there to sustain the beehive throughout the winter. Rav Kahan. Now we're getting into a whole new sugya of tumas oichel. Dvash b'kaveris. Honey that's actually in the beehive. Honey that's actually in the beehive. Does it have a din of oichel? Is it called bee food? If it's bee food, then it's not an oichel, and it cannot be metamat tumas oichel. It's only for the beastie. Zokrav Kana it has a din of an oichel. Even in the hive, it has a din of an oichel. Even though I didn't say I'm not leaving this honey in there for bee food. I'm taking this honey to make regular food out of it. You don't have to do that. It's you don't need a machshava to designate this honey as food. By default, it's considered even while it's in the hive. I'm sorry. Well, so the Rashbam actually directly addresses that shaila, but it depends on what you're going to use it for. So let's have a look at the Rashbam. Dvash. Afilu bechavroso eino yoytze b'dei Michael. Ve'afal pi sheyesh eish advorim oichel nefshon. Even though sometimes the bees will eat that honey. Afilu ochi eino yoytze b'dei Michael. Until you say, I'm leaving this for Michael Dvorim. Inami could be there's a whole different shot in this halacha. Rather, davka b'kavros have an oichel. It's only considered an oichel while it's in the honeycomb. Aval imzov b'kavrosoi, once it flows out, have a mashke mistam. Then we by default we say it's a mashke and not an oichel. Ela imkein chishav olav lachi. So in fact, the honey does become a mashke. So let's see what the Gemara says. Meisvei. Which last word?
Every time you...
No, you're going to use it in a cake. You're not going to drink it. You put it into a tea. Everybody drinks honey. Meisvei for the Gemara. Dvash b'kaveris. The Brisa says Dvash b'kaveris einoi lo yochel v'lo mashke. When it's in the beehive, it's not an oichel or a mashke, which is a direct steer to Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana says by default it has a din of an oichel. Yet the Brisa says b'kaveris not like that. Amar Abaye lo tzricha elo lo oisten shtei chalois. Dr. Abaye, we just learned that even when you sell a hive, you're always keeping 2 chalois in the hive to sustain the hive. Well, even if it's your own hive and you're not selling anything, those 2 chalois always have a status of not an oichel. Because that's for sure designated to feed the bees. It's only the rest of the honeycombs that have defaulted, they're called an oichel. So if Kahana said any Michael, he means all of the honeycombs in the hive except for 2, because 2 are always going to remain with the hive to feed the bees. Rav Amar, Rabbi Eliezer, we learned about Rabbi Eliezer. Remember Rabbi Eliezer told us that a kaveris is called mechuber l'karka? So If mechubel karka can't have any tumah at all because mechubel karka is not makabel tumah. So Rav Amar Rabbi Eliezer, this brisa that says "Ein Eloi oichav olei mashka" is going according to Rabbi Eliezer. Rav Kahana is not going according to Rabbi Eliezer. Rav Kahana holds, like the Rabbanon, that a kaveris is not considered mechubel karka. Therefore, the honey in the hive, in the honeycombs in the hive, have a status of an oichel. But Rabbi Eliezer holds the honeycomb in the hive has a status of mechuber, and that's why it's in a mashka, because it doesn't have tumas oichel and tumas mashka. It's not like we learned, and this is also chazara of a gemara we had earlier. The Tanan we learned kaveris, a beehive, the volume of bees. Rabbi Eliezer Omer harei kikarka. It has a din of karka because a kaveris is made out of like a basket material, and then it's cemented to the ground. So it's considered mechuber, and therefore, because you know, like prosbul, you can use it for a prosbul because you only write a prosbul if the loiv has karka. Ve'ini mekabel es toma b'mkaima, while it's connected, while the honey is connected to the hive, it's not mekabel toma. That's relevant to our sugya. That's our Rabbi Eliezer, and it's so mechuber that v'haroidim imene b'Shabbos chayiv. If you take honey out of the hive on Shabbos, that's like being polish perish from a tree, and you'll be chayiv chatas. So they write, no, it's not mechuber. And koshnale prosbul ve'ine kakarka umekabel tuma b'mkaima. Even honey in the hive is mekabel tuma. It has a status of a noichel, like Rav Kahana said. By writing imene b'Shabbos potter. Amar Rabbi Lozar, my time is Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Lozar the Amoyer asked, "What is this for?" Of Rabbi Eliezer the Tana. It says by Yonason didn't know that his father said anybody who's going to eat any food until this war is over at the end of the day will be killed. Yonason didn't know because he did a breakaway to conduct an attack, which ultimately was what won the whole war for Eden. So Yonason was a hero that day, and when he came back, he didn't know that his father said this, and he dipped his sword into a bee hive to take honey out to eat the honey. The yit beloisa the yaris advash, and he dipped his sword into the yaris advash, which is the forest of the dvash. Break the Gemara. Why is the Novi referring to the dvash as a yar, as a forest? Just like if you pull a fruit off a tree in the forest on Shabbos, remember, we mentioned, we say in the Yidin Lachata end that the Klal Yisrael circled Yonason and said, nothing's going to happen to him. He saved us today, right? That's right. Zok to Gemara weiter. Meisvei. Let's ask another kasha. Meisvei. So, frank Gemara kasha. Dvash hazov mikavras. Honey oozed out of a beehive. Einoi loy oichel v'loy mash. This is shver Rav Kahana. So Bishlama, because Rav Kahana said that it's an oichel even in the beehive, right? So Bishlama Abaye, Bishlama the way Abaye learned nicha, because which honey did Rav Kahana say is an oichel? That's only the honey that you're going to remove. But the two honeycombs, any honey over there is designated for the bees. So it makes sense, according to Abaye, that this brisa that says the vash is of the kivrasa ein lo oichel v'lo mashka, it's speaking where it flowed from those two that were designated to be as food for the bees. So it makes sense why it's lo oichel v'lo mashka. El Rava, that he said that the reason why in the brisa we quoted earlier it's not considered an oichel or a mashka is because it's mechuber. Once the honey flows out of the hive, it's not mechuber anymore. So how could you possibly explain why this brisa says ein lo oichel v'lo mashka? It must be going according to the Rabbanon. And you see that it's going to be shver Rav Kahana, because Rav Kahana says by default it is an oichel, and this brisa says it's not an oichel. El Rava kasha. Amar said no. Kigoyin shezov al gabe klimos. You know why? Really, it's going according to. Really, this brisa is going according to Rabbi Eliezer. And in the hive, it's mechuber. Out of the hive, it would have also been an oichel, but the problem is it fell onto a klimos. So it never got a shem oichel because when it came out, it fell right away to a klimos, and therefore it's not considered an oichel. However, the Rashbam speaks out. If you hold it was an oichel inside the hive, even though it fell into a klimos, it retains its shem oichel. If it's not an oichel yet, falling into a klemos would prevent it from becoming an oichel. But if it already is an oichel, it would not lose its shem oichel, even if it fell into a klemos, until it's not even royal achilas kelef. But a klemos is royal achilas kelef. So if it fell into a klemos, if it wasn't an oichel, it won't become an oichel. But if it was an oichel, it would not lose its shem oichel. If it fell into a klemos, that's not enough to make it oichel. You could still gather it. Kashkashin is it fell into like a granular type of substance, meaning like small siman rashes, like small splinters. You can't gather it up. It's all mixed in now with the little splinters. How are you going to gather it up? So therefore, it doesn't get a shem oichel. Meisvei dvash b'kavrasa dvash in the hive. Einoi loy oichel v'loy mashke. That makes sense if you hold like Rebbe Eliezer because it's mechuber. But chishev olav la'achila. What if you had in mind that I want to eat this? Metamat mosoichel. Now, if you hold like Rebbe Eliezer that with mechuber l'karka, from behind morgen you could be choshev la'achila on it. It won't make it into an oichel l'gabit mosoichel. You can have, think a whole day that apple on the tree I plan to eat. It still won't become tummy if a shirt touched it because it's mechuber. So that would not be consistent with this brayso. The vash b'kavrasoi eini loy oichel v'loy mashke chishev olav la'achila metamat mosoichel l'mashkin metamat mashkin. So bishlam l'bayanicha, because you could learn this brayso is not going according to Rebbe Eliezer. It's going according to the Rabbanon, and according to the Rabbanon, you have a raya. You have a raya that. I'm sorry. This won't be a problem for Rav Kahana because Rav Kahana, when he said that automatically the honey in a hive is considered an oichel, that's referring to all the honey except for those two chalas. It's just those two chalas that Rav Kahana says is not going to become an oichel. But if it was chishev alav lachila, if you had specific in mind on the chalas that are designated for the bees that you plan to use them for honey, yes, it would make them into an oichel. Yes, it would make them into a matzah. According to Rava, right? If you want to say this brayso is going according to Rebbe Eliezer, chishev alav shouldn't help. And if it's not going according to Rebbe Eliezer, then it's going to be straight Rav Kahana, because Rav Kahana says automatically it's an oichel, not only if it's chishev alav. So Gemara, it's not a problem. We're going to teach this brayso differently. Chishev alav lachila, even if you were choshev alav lachila, still ain't a metamasot. Lamashkin ain't a metamasot. So you might ask, so what? He's changing the brayso? Zok Tosfos, no. Let's read the brayso based on the understanding of this Gemara's teretz. The vash b'kavrosoi is eni lo oichel v'limashka. Why is it not an oichel or mashka? Because it's mechuber l'karka. And mechuber l'karka will never have a status of an oichel or mashka l'gabe tuma. L'gabe what would I want to maybe consider it an oichel? If chishav alav l'achila or metamat oichel, it's not that. So eni lo oichel v'limashka, even if chishav alav l'achila to be metamat oichel, it's not an oichel to make it be metamat oichel if you're chishav alav l'achila. And it's not a mashkin in to be able to say that if you were choishev alav l'mashkin should be metamat mashkin. It's not that. It's not that because it's mechuber l'karka the way Rabbi Eliezer learns. Tanya Kavod said to Rav Kahana, we actually have a brayso. No, so I read the brayso to mean something different. What it means is the Dvash. I'll read it again. Dvash b'kavrosoi einoi loy oichel v'loy mashke. It's not an oichel mashke because it's mechuber l'karka. Even if chishav alav l'chiloi metamat oichel, even if you want to make it into an oichel, l'gabe chishav alav l'chila, it's loy oichel even for that. So the chishav alav l'chila metamat oichel is what the brayso is commenting on, that it's not an oichel. It's not an oichel for that. I'm not making this up. It's the very first Tosfos. If you look at Tosfos, Tiritz ve'machi eina magia brayso. We're not changing the lashon brayso. We're not changing it. We're just teaching it different. The vash b'kavrosoi It's not an oichel mashke. Okay, Zok the Heilige, the more weiter.
According to Revelation.
Correct. We have a brisa that supports Rav Kahana, in fact, that the vash by default is an oichel. Tanya goes to Rav Kahana, the vash b'kevrosai metamatim oichel, even shaloi b'machshava. By default, you say that the vash in a keveres is metamatim oichel, and clearly Rav Kahana is not going according to Rav Eliezer. He's going according to Chachamim that when it's in a beehive, it's not metamatim oichel. When it's in the beehive, it is metamatim oichel. I'm sorry. It's not considered mechuber. It's metamatim oichel by default, even shaloi b'machshava. But we have to hold of a biased teretz that the first two honeycombs are designated to be the food for the bees, and those would not be enough. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Zeisim lokuts maniach shtei grupiyos. If you have zeisim lokuts, you don't let the buyer destroy the tree. You have to leave over two branches that are still growing, so that the tree will rejuvenate itself. You bought a tree from your friend that you were going to cut it down. You don't want to destroy the tree. Therefore, you have to leave at least one tefach of stump, because that will allow the tree to regrow. That's how a regular tree would work. The koitetz betzuls a shikma, but a shikma tree that was never trimmed before, they're gimel tvachim. There, in order for such a tree to rejuvenate, you have to leave it with a stump of 3 tvachim. Sadna shikma, if it's already a mature shikma, and you cut it down, it's base tvachim, you have to leave a stump of 2 tvachim. Bekanim ubegefanim. What about kanim are like reeds, and gefanim are vine? Mina pekak ulamayla, from the first knuckle and up. You have to leave a knuckle growing. I guess there's little knuckles that look like knuckles in the vine. As it grows, you have to leave that this way it could regrow. But the kalim ubarozim, if it's a decal or an erez, a palm tree or a cedar tree, chayfer umisharish, you could just uproot them. Don't even worry about it. No matter where you cut it, it's going to die anyway. So when you're selling it without any intent of it rejuvenating itself. Okay, so period. So that's the price. Frank Gemara, it seems to tell us, so we're not anymore asking a kasha on our Gemara. Our mission is fine. We're just drilling down into what the Bryce has said, that for a Basulas HaShikma, you have to leave a stump that's 3 tefachim in order for the tree to rejuvenate itself. Frank Gemara challenges that, so you have to leave 3 tefachim of stump for the Basulas HaShikma to rejuvenate. I'm going to ask you a kasha from Hilchas Shemitah. We know on Shemitah you're not allowed to do anything to a tree that will improve it. And it says in the Brayta, "Ein koitetin besulas hashikma b'shvius." You're not allowed to cut a besulas hashikma on the Shemitah year. Epnei she avoida, and the Rashbam says avoida means it'll actually help it grow better. She got the yoser. Sometimes when you trim something, it grows better. So you're not allowed to cut down a besulas hashikma ever, under no circumstances. Rabbi Yehuda or no. It all depends on where you're cutting it. Kedarkei also, it's only also to cut it if it's in a place where it might benefit the tree. But if you cut it where it for sure not benefit the tree, there won't be a problem on Shemitah. And I'm going to give you 2 places where you can cut it where it won't benefit the tree. Either Makbia Yud Tfachim the Koitzitz, if you cut it above 10 Tfachim from the ground, so you leave a stump of 10 Tfachim, that's bad for it. A shorter stump for this tree is better than a taller stump. So if you cut it above 10 tefachim, that's not going to be good for the tree. Or you totally uproot it from the ground. That for sure is not going to help the tree grow. Zog to Gemara, to the kasha. It's mashma that if you totally uproot it, that is what's going to be bad for the tree. If you leave a stump of 1, of 2, of 3, it'll be good for it. The problem is, we just said that you have to leave at least 3 tefachim when you sell so that it can regrow. But it's much from this brisa that you can't even leave it 1 or 2 tefachim because it also helps it regrow. So how could you tell me that a shikma needs 3 tefachim to regrow? From this brisa, it's mashma even 1 or 2 tefachim can regrow. Amr Abayin, Gimel tefachim ma'ilila. If you leave exactly 3 tefachim, that's guaranteed. You know for sure that's good for the tree. If you uproot it for sure, that's for sure that this tree is not surviving. But the question is, anywhere in the middle, between 0 and 3 tvachim. The Rishonim learn that we're not sure. We don't know if you cut it between from 0 to 3 tvachim, if you trim it at that height, we don't know if it's possible that it might benefit or not. We're not sure. So therefore, Gabesh Shvius, where we need to be 100% sure that you're not helping the tree improve, we have to cut it in a place where we're 100% sure it will damage the tree. Avdina midi devade kashla, which means either uproot it completely or cut it a bev tanfachim. That for sure is not good. Anywhere in the middle, we're not sure about. But by Mekach and Memker, it's the opposite. You need to cut out the tree in such a way you're for sure going to be keeping and sustaining the tree for the seller. So Gabe Mekach and Memkar, Avdina and Midi, devade malam lo. We're going to treat it in a way where we know for sure the tree will survive. And therefore, 3 tvachim is the only height of the stump where if you cut it there, it will for sure survive. Gewaltig. Now we have a new case. B'dekalim u'barozim. Let's analyze what the Brisa said. If it's a decal or an eres, chayfer u'mesharish. You know why? Because anyway, lifi she'ein gizon machal. Break the Gemara. The eres ein gizon machal. Are you telling me a cedar tree, if you cut it down, it won't regrow? V'adarish Reb Chia bar Lulaini. My dechsiv. It says in the pasuk, Tzadik katomar yifrach ke'eres balavonin yiska. A tzadik is compared to a tamar, a palm tree, and to a cedar tree. Why do you need to compare a tzadik to 2 different types of trees? Im noimar tamar, lama noimar eres. Im noimar eres, lama noimar tamar. Zok the Gemara. Ilu nemar eres. If the Torah only compared a tzadik to an eres, v'loy noimar tamar, and didn't compare a tzadik to a tamar, hayisi yomer, ma eres eino oisa pears. Just like eres doesn't make pears, av tzadik eino oisa pears. Now eino oisa pears, Rishbam teaches in 2 ways. Either she'oichel tzedkosav ba'olam hazeh and ve'ein lo l'olam haba. That's one shot. Hinami she'ein machil noisei pri malolav. He won't get the schar. He won't get the schar that he's entitled to. So you might think that it's ein lo pears. Av tzadik ein lo pears. That's what the Torah specifically wanted to compare a tzaddik to a tamar. But if we only compared the tzaddik to a tamar, just like a tamar tree, a palm tree, if you cut it down, it doesn't regrow. So to a tzaddik en gizei machluf. What does en gizei machluf mean? Zok to Rashbam, imeis shelo yelid ben kamoisa. If he dies, his child won't grow up to be like him. That's one shot. Or im yopel ikud. If he has nichshel in the he'll never be able to get out of it. Kamash malon, that avada, he will be able to. Matamar en gizei machluf, tzaddik en gizei machluf. That even if a tzaddik falls, he will stand up again, or he'll have good children. So you have a raya from here that a cedar tree does rejuvenate. So how could the Brisa say if you sell them a cedar tree, you can cut it down completely because it's not going to rejuvenate anyway? Here we see it does rejuvenate. We're going to see there's 10 types of cedar trees. Some rejuvenate, some don't. Amri Beirav, Yudin Mine Arozimheim. There's 10 types of cedar trees. Shenemer Etain Bemidbar. Eres is 1, Shita is 2, Hadis is 3, H Shemen is 3, and H Shemen is 4. Okay, then we touch these up. There's more in the pasuk. I don't read it. It's too late to read the whole pasuk inside. So Eres is Arza, Shita is Ternisa. I don't know what all these plants are. Sorry.
7.
Yeah, there are 7. We're going to get to Hados is Asa, H Shemen. So H Shemen is 1, it says over here, is a parsima, that's parsimon. Beroish is Barti, Tidar is Shaga, and Tasher is Shervina. Frank Gemara, you said there's 10, Hani Zayin Have. These are only 7. Yasser Avdimi Omar, Haisiva Aleim, there's 3 more. Aloinim, Almoinim, and Almoigim. Aloinim are Butni, Almoinim are Bluti, and Almoigim is Kisisa. Kisisa is coral. Coral like that grows in the sea. That's what the Rishonim say. It's coral. That's the only one that I recognize. Ikadami Aroinim, Armoinim, Almoigim. Aroinim is Ari, Armoinim is Dulvi, and Almoigim is kasisa. So I just want to point out one gewaltige Gezach. Are you telling me that the Torah couldn't find a tree that both rejuvenates and has pears? So why did you have to do Erez and Tamar? Pick a tree that does both. Huh? That's the Ben Yehoyada's kasha. Zok the Ben Yehoyada, we dafka want Tamar. What's unique about a Tamar? When you walk down the street and you see a palm tree, you don't see the pears. The pears are out of sight. At Tzaddik, he doesn't flaunt his mitzvahs, he doesn't flaunt his tzidkis. A tzaddik's mitzvahs are out of sight. So b'dafka we want to compare a tzaddik to a tamar, and he also has a whole shtickle that erez and tamar is aleph tov. A tzaddik is compared to aleph and tov because he encompasses all of the Torah, and he also says that if you take the soif deves of tamar and erez, it's roz. So roz could mean either a zer, which is like a crown. Roz can refer to the secrets of Torah, but roz aleph vav is Zion plus Reish. It's the Gemati of Or, of light, because the Tzaddikim are a light unto the nations.
One of them.
Okay, we'll stop here. Everyone should have a Gittin Shabbos. And if your wife asks you, what did you learn today? You tell your wife, we learned today about the birds and the bees, and about the trees, and the hives. If you're too Isaac in the birds and the bees, you might have to deal with hives.